Hello, this is David Bernstein, President and CEO of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs. Welcome to this edition of CRCast, a bi-monthly webcast on Jewish advocacy and community relations issues for the community relations field. We're delighted to have with us today Yigal Carmon, who is the founder and president of MEMRI. For the last 20 years, Yigal and MEMRI have been involved in overseeing, looking at the Arab and Muslim media, and have been reporting to the Jewish world and others about what they see, what they hear. And it's been an indispensable service to many of us. And Yigal, I'm really glad you're here with us today. I know many of us are still reeling from what's happened in Pittsburgh. We've been doing vigils all over the country. Thousands and thousands of people have been coming to their synagogues. This is a solidarity Shabbat, so many people will be coming to Shabbat services all over the country to memorialize the victims and to express their outrage at what's happening in the country. And what you do is also monitor a kind of anti-Semitism. And I want to start with that, Yigal. First of all, tell us a little bit more about MEMRI than I just did in my introduction.
Thank you, David, for having me. And, hi to everyone. MEMRI is a concept. Wherever there is a conflict between ideologies, nations, ethnic groups, what have you, in order to understand it, in order to solve it or find ways to solve it, one has to monitor go to primary source material, to the media to understand the present, to the school books to understand the future, and to religious institutions to see what content are they spreading, wherever religion plays a role in the life of the individual and the community. And we do it regarding the Arab and Muslim world. Since 2016, we are doing it also regarding Russia, the Russian media. We are translating it and analyzing it. And someone has to do the Chinese media. I won't enter into this, but we all need to know what are they teaching to their children, what is said on their TV, etc. We are about 70 people for the last 20 years monitoring not just anti-Semitism, we monitor the Arab and Muslim world, Iran, Turkey, South Asia, and we translate, and of course the Arab world itself, and we translate, and we publish translations and analysis papers that are very conservative in that they are always based on quotes from the Arab and Muslim world.
Right. So I was in Israel. JCPA was in Israel when the shootings in Pittsburgh took place, and I actually first saw the action on Israeli TV, and it was very clear from all the Israelis I talked to that there was, tremendous sorrow and tremendous interest also in what was happening in the U.S. You're an observer of anti-Semitism in general, and I would love to get your perspective on Pittsburgh and how we might think about it.
Well, when I look at the way the attack is related to, and I see that President Trump talks about this killer as a wacko, a madman, crazy, and I think this is wrong. He is no wacko, no madman. He is not a robber, not a thief. This is a man that acts on the basis of an ideology, and this is to disconnect him from his ideology is wrong. I remember after Oklahoma City, a museum was built there on the place of the building, and it has everything except the ideology of the militias. This happened also with President Obama, Hollande, Theresa May. They called these people nihilists, cowards, sick cowards, all kinds of things, worshippers of death. This is all wrong. It's trying to disconnect it from its ideological base is wrong. We have to face the ideology, as horrible as it is. This man has a dream that he was willing to give his life for, and that is America without Jews. And this is an ideology, a dream. He's not alone. And if we don't relate to that, we will be sure to have more and more attacks. And the same stands for not relating or disconnecting the acts of Arab Islamists or what have you from their ideological base. No violence goes out of nothing. It comes from an ideological base, religious or other.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. So one of the things we want to explore with you, and I'm sure we're going to return back to this theme when we start exploring the roots of anti-Semitism in Muslim and Arab world, but I want to ask for your observations about what's happening in the Arab and Muslim media today. We hear a lot about how Israel is becoming increasingly close to the governments of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and the like, and that this reflects a positive trend, that they share a common threat in Iran, and that they're willing to go on the line to a degree in building up connections with Israel. I've also heard some reports, but not a lot, that this is being reflected in at least some aspects of the Arab media. But I know you're monitoring the Arab and Muslim media on a day-to-day basis. Have you seen any change in the way that Israel is being reported, in the way that Jews are being thought of in these media outlets? Is it getting to the next level beyond the government at this point?
Well, in the Arab world, the media is either of the government or the opposition, whether inside or outside the country. So it's been 2 years now that we see this development. Since the governments are more open to Israel, the media is more open. And you see this, it's not that the media created it, the government allowed these sentiments to be written black on white. And this is what we see, incredible references to it. It's just unbelievable. Okay, in the last few days, we saw also that Israel was received, the Prime Minister and 2 ministers in Oman and the UAE. But if I were to relate to what you hear in the Arab media, and mainly in the Gulf, this is where the change has come, not in Syria, Lebanon, Jordan and Egypt. They are anyway already in some kind of peace, so you don't, even there were some outbursts of higher level of acceptance, but in the Gulf, here is some motifs that are to be seen there. And by the way, in May of this year, we published 2 analysis reports about the changes. And I urge everybody to go to MEMRI and to read them about the shift in the attitudes in the Gulf, Saudi Arabia and the other. So let me just, I won't quote the people, but it's important people, government and writers that are of high level. So first of all, that we have to recognize Israel, and normalize relations with it. In Sudan, in Tunisia, ministers are saying it. In Saudi Arabia, of course, they say not to hide the relations with it. We want an Israeli embassy in Riyadh. Congratulations for the 70 years of Israel. Some visited Israel. It's calling the Palestinians to come to an agreement with Israel, even if it's based on some concessions. They missed too many opportunities. Israel is a legitimate country. Hamas is terroristic. The problem, and it's not hidden, the real problem for us, they say, is Iran. Zionism is preferable to Arab nationalism. Enough with the blind hate to Israel. The culture of hate to the Jews has to be eliminated from its roots.
You're seeing all this in the mainstream media?
Black on white, on paper, black on white. I really urge people to go. There are also, of course, the videos where you can see them saying it, but also these 2 reports that summarize much of it. It's really very, it shows you that when the governments are opening up to that, the people are happy to go for it.
Right. Is it provoking any backlash in the media? Are there Arab media outlets, Muslim media outlets that are suggesting that this is a kind of treachery to the governments?
Within the countries, no, the opposition is outside. In the case of the visit to Oman of the Prime Minister just last week, so Iran came out with first they said, okay, who is Oman? More or less, they're nothing and we don't care. But then they realized they cannot go with this, so they attacked the Omani who has no children and he has no, I mean, some crazy stuff that is really shows panic of what happened. Qatar had also a team of sport, some kind of sport, I don't know which was it. But in the case of Qatar, there was for the first time in my life that I saw criticism in Jazeera of Qatar. And but again, with Qatar, it's a funny story. They allowed the team, the sport team, and they attack Israel from morning to night. They have an American base in Qatar, and they attack America daily from the morning to the evening. This is a long story of helping or promoting bin Laden with all the videos, if you remember, there's all the jihadists. So Qatar is a funny story. But again, those who criticized the Lebanese Hezbollah writers who are somehow in the media, I must say they don't have much traction. When it goes that far, what are they? They are exposed as the warmongers, as those who just won't go for any solution. By the way, the Saudis and others, they don't talk about accepting either, and that's it, and whatever. They talk about peace plan. They say we have to come with a peace. We have to. It's not selling out anything. It's just changing the approach to Israel, but not selling the Palestinians in no way. They talk about two states.
Have you seen any evidence that there's impact in attitudes in the Arab world? Are we seeing any survey results that might show that people's attitudes toward Israel are improving?
Of people?
Yes, of the people on the ground.
Well, unfortunately, today, Israelis, in the past, Israelis went everywhere, to Egypt, to Jordan, not so much. It's been a time that they don't go much. Not so you can see that. You may find it in other places, but you can see the approach of the small man, or whatever you call it, the regular man, or whoever he is. You cannot see it. But what you read is something that wouldn't have been written had it not been something that is acceptable.
Right. Great. By the way, I'm going to invite our viewers to submit questions on the question box in the GoToWebinar, and I'll be monitoring that the best I can. And if we have time, we'll pose those questions. All right. So I thought we'd pivot a bit. Yigal, we've talked a lot about even though you're seeing positive progress in the Arab world toward attitudes toward Jews in Israel, you still see more than enough of anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic attitudes. Why don't you start by telling us about that, and then we'll talk a little bit about what you think American Jews might do about it.
Thank you. So first of all, I think who is to blame? Let's begin with this. And I must say something that I know people would not take that easily. I say to blame is the internet. From 2007, it allows a flow of hate from the East. Everyone has all the poison has on his cell phone. He gets it all freely, and the amount of hate that comes from the East to American citizens of Muslim religion is incredible. Now we have done a whole year last year monitoring of imams in America, and you find there anti-Semitism, incitement to violence, hate propaganda, hate in terms of ideology, in amounts that are really worrying. And I tried, and I think that what needs to be done, and allow me to say it to you, David, and to all your listeners, I believe that the center organization of the American Jewry have to engage in a pushback in exposing, it's not actually pushback, it's defending Jewish lives, because if this will be let to go, if things will be taken lightly and nothing will be published and exposed and creating a burden on them to stop that. I want to give an example. Unfortunately, the Imams Project didn't win any reaction among Jewish organizations. It did help with an imam in New Jersey of the three states. He said, we have to stop this rhetoric, we have to stop the hate, and no imam should be appointed to any in his area without getting a permission from us, without going through a training. And this is a fantastic result of the this is precisely what we need. But this came without any Jewish organization relating to it, as if, like, what is it Islamophobic? If they say kill the Jews and to expose it as Islamophobic, it's not serious. This is something that has to be exposed and create a burden on the Justice Department. You know, it's true. There is in America the First Amendment, but there is also legislation against hate crimes, and this legislation has to be enforced. And
because legislation is designed to add penalties when someone has already committed a crime. So
Congress has to find, or the DOJ has to find solutions to preempt it, whether it comes from these white racist supremacists or Nazis or from the others. What I think would be wrong to to connect to the Islamist haters just because they also hate Trump. So, but there is no connection here. They are as bad as this Bowers criminal idealist. I am also falling into these wrong definitions. But they are the same, so the Jewish community should not connect to that. Trump is Trump, he has to be criticized, but no connection to these people that are themselves, like Linda Sarsour, like Abir Kayed, a professor was professor in Howard, and she says that the Pittsburgh was not a hate crime. That's what she says on TV. It's on MEMRI. You can see it was strictly political. This is of the same kinds of calling them madmen and cowards and wakers, and we have to relate. And I believe that JCRC, B'nai Brit, others should go into publishing a weekly report showing the good people who call for tolerance, for coexistence, and not be dragged by those who just deceive. We have done that in Europe with great success. Of course, in Europe, you have legislation against Holocaust, against all kinds of it. But it can be done in America. If there is a need for legislation, so be it. Someone has to rise up and to push for that, or else we allow these idealists for America without Jews, or for the others based on religion, to have their day. This is impossible. The hate to LGBT was what brought the murderers of the Orlando on this club in which they were. This is the same story. It is religiously based, it is ideologically based. We have to rise up against both. And I'm calling upon the center organizations of America, the center, like JCRC, like the B'nai Brit, to rise up to publish a weekly service of what is happening, to allow people to see it, and then actions will come. People will begin to do things, and now the Justice Department is finally trying to monitor anti-Semitism. Where have they been before? Okay, this is good that they are beginning somehow, but why not the Jewish organizations? And not only the white racists, but also the others.
Right. So you think that the American Jewish community just has not done enough on sort of the far left extremist side of the spectrum, particularly in responding to anti-Semitism coming from the Muslim and Arab communities?
Nothing whatsoever. We did all the 70 clips of imams in America, and no reaction at all. I talked to the board of some people of the board of the Conference of Presidents, and all they asked me was, are you recording them secretly? And I said, no, they are proud of what they do. They put it on their YouTube accounts. And we take only from what they put out, and they are proud of, and they are showing to their community, this is what we stand for. This is what we do. And this is something that must be related to in a serious way.
Right. Now, so, one question that came our way is, okay, we can expose the negative, of course, of what's coming out, but what about just spending more of our political capital on advancing relationships with Muslims? If we
absolutely, when we did the Imams project, we exposed, so to speak, also the ones that build tolerance and friendship and understanding. It's not just to expose it, but also the good, so to speak. Of course, we have to put capital in that as much as we possibly can, just not to be deceived. This is something important, David. In many cases, like in Davis, California, there was an imam who taught Wahhabism, who spoke about killing the Jews, and he had such great interfaith relations. A crook, a deceiver. In Toulouse, France, an imam that they couldn't believe themselves. He was so much into interfaith, and then in his community, in Arabic, he taught the opposite. So absolutely for coexistence, for putting every capital possible to have good relations, but not to be deceived. That's all. To spend the little that is needed to see what are they saying to their people in Arabic. There is no problem. We can get, whoever needs our help will have it. No one wants to be deceived. No one wants to be to be told one thing to sort of hypocritically, and then to tell other things to his community. This is something that we have to be wiser than that. But definitely, those who are who tend to understanding, all the capital that we can, all the capital that we can.
Got it. Yeah, this has been very, very helpful and enlightening. And I would invite you, especially when you're monitoring groups on the U.S. front, to make sure that we see your reports. And I know you send great emails, but I think we can make even a better effort to make sure that those that are on the American front, I think it's certainly, whatever happens in the U.S. is going to be relevant to the Community Relations Network. I think sometimes MEMRI is perceived as monitoring what happens in the Arab world, and you could argue that that's very relevant to us as well, and many of us are very interested in that. But when you do reports on what's happening in the U.S., that's especially relevant, and we can make sure that you get the eyeballs that you need, and that helps direct our agenda forward.
But David, I won't let you go. You and Bnei Brit, you have to take our stuff, other stuff, and to do it as a public service to the JCRC, all chapters, I mean, this is vital. This is absolutely vital. And everybody, I urge everybody to go to MEMRI, but the problem with MEMRI, you have so much stuff that is not only America. Now we will do, as I said, from this week, we are going to begin to expose the white racists, especially like the case of this French site, anti-Semitic site, that comes to America to enjoy the First Amendment. What the heck is this? I mean, this has to be stopped, not allowed, or else what are we, stupids?
Right. Well, I really appreciate that, and I think you provide a very unique insight, and it's also great to have a perspective of someone in Israel who's been monitoring this for years, and I think you're helping us understand what we're up against. As you said, these are not idiots. They're ideologues, and they're people with ideas that are, and they're trying to bring those ideas alive by killing others. So
ideals, David, ideals. We can call it ideals, as horrific as they are, ideals. But one correction, David, we are registered, based in America, in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
We are not an Israeli organization. I'm Israeli, but we are American in every way. And please go to memri.org, MEMRI.org, memritv.org. You will find it there, everything. But I hope that also you will get it, I'm talking to the listeners, you will begin getting it from David and from Bnei Brit to their people, because it's a matter of life, as simple as that.
We appreciate that. Yigal, thank you very, very much for being with us. We really appreciate your insights. We're going to invite you all to join us in a couple weeks on November 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to have Eric Ward from the Western States Center. Some of you heard Eric last Sunday on white nationalism. He is a civil rights activist, a community organizer who's become a real expert on white nationalism and anti-Semitism, and how white supremacists have been animated in a way by anti-Semitism and have prioritized anti-Semitism over other forms of hatred and bigotry. He's fascinating, and we want to get an update from him. So please tune in to us then. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Yigal.